In today's challenge, I'm going to be making a complete techno track with all the sounds coming from Surge XT. Now, Surge XT is a software synthesizer which is open source, and apparently it's been around for some time, but I haven't really taken notice until now. But recently, modules for VCV Rack have been released that basically replicate all the parts of the original synthesizer, and that's actually what I'm going to use to make our techno track today. Because I've been playing around with the regular version of Surge XT, and I have to say that I do find it a little bit of a clunky interface. It didn't sit that well with me. And if you've been watching this channel, you know that I love VCV Rack, so the modules in VCV Rack look like a very good idea to me. Now, there's a bunch of interesting modules based on Surge XT, especially the oscillators that I want to get into. So without further ado, let's get started on this track. Starting off with a kick drum, and here I'm using the Sine VCO, a quad envelope generator, a VCA with envelope generator, and a distortion. First adjusting the pitch. Now I'm going to set up a pitch envelope that is coming from the quad AD module. As you can see, a very cool modulation system where you press a button and assign it. It's very flexible. Adjusting the envelope here to control the pitch, and now the envelope of the amplifier, basically making the sound a little bit longer. The ADSR for the general envelope. And when that is adjusted to taste, play a little bit with the distortion module here. Give that kick some extra crunch and oomph. Moving on to a sub bass. I'm basically using the same patch. I've created a short sequence, as you can see at the bottom, adjusting the tuning, adjusting the ADSR, and that is already mostly the sound done. Just your typical low rumble, trying some distortion on there. That's maybe a bit too much. Oh hell, why not just go for it? And this is what it sounds like together with the kick. Okay, now for a synth patch here. I've made another MIDI clip, very simple sequence, using the Alias VCO, which is a very interesting oscillator with a bunch of parameters that I don't completely understand. It does do unison, as you can hear, and some different models, I guess, VCO models, some more tweaking, until I find something that I like. As you can see, this patch is a bit more complicated with the filter and a delay, some LFOs. Right now I'm using this very handy combined VCA with built-in envelope, and now setting up some modulation from the AD generator to the filter cutoff. Typical synth patch, subtractive patch with an envelope controlling the cutoff of the filter. Adding in some delay here, pretty tasty sounding delay. A whole bunch of effects units in this Surge XT series, because the synth has a bunch of effects as well. Okay, next up, a noisy rhythm. So for this I'm gonna use the same Alias VCO, but now to create some noise. It's quite a versatile VCO. The filter here, I'm gonna change that to a bandpass. Adjust the settings a little bit to get the right frequency spectrum for the noise. The amp envelope. Some more tweaking of the filter. And some fake sidechain courtesy of LFO Tool. Now, I could have done this in the VCV Rack patch as well, but it was a little bit too complicated, and I think I am allowed to use effects. And this is how it sounds. Next up, I'm going to go for a pad sound, and for this I have the FM3 VCO, basically 3 operator FM that I'm adjusting now. You can hear the typical weird FM sideband harmonics. And of course the cool thing with this, with the modular, is setting up some modulation here. And for this I'm going to use the LFO, the quad LFO. So out of the 4 LFOs I've connected 3 to the different modulation amounts in this oscillator. And as you can see, it's really easy to set up this modulation and adjust it. And now we have this evolving FM patch. And adding reverb, I think it's a great sounding reverb module, and this is what it sounds like together. Next up, a stab sound. I'm using the same basic patch, and for this I've removed the LFOs from the oscillator and I'm setting up an envelope to get some FM modulation here. So with a snappy attack and a decay, just tweaking the parameters here to find a harmonic content that is suitable for what I want to do. A low stab sound. Adding the filter and reverb filter envelope here, just like I did earlier in the main synth patch. Adjusting everything to taste. The pitch needed to be a little bit lower, and that is the stab sound pretty much done. Next up, a shaker sound. So I'm using the sample and hold noise VCO. Another interesting module here. It has built-in filters, high pass and low pass, very handy. Some of the other oscillators have that as well. Really useful, you don't have to connect an external filter. And adjusting to taste the amp envelope. A shaker sound, so with a soft attack, and I'm putting some modulation here on the decay time that's coming from the LFO to give it a little bit more of an organic feel, the randomness of the delay time varying subtly. Some more tweaking to the built-in filters of the VCO, and that's basically it. Moving on to a hi-hat sound. This is a really simple patch, as you can see. Basically the twist VCO does all the work. It has a built-in envelope, it has a hi-hat model. Tweaking that to get a hi-hat sound that I like. The quad LFO is in this patch, but actually as you can see I'm not even using it. It's all coming from this twist VCO, basically a synth voice onto itself. Really cool, really useful, and I think it sounds pretty good as well. Last up, I'm going to make a cymbal sound. For this again I'm using the twist VCO, and I've added a chorus effect to give it a wider stereo feel. Adjusting the parameters of the twist VCO here to get a more cymbal-like sound, and mixing in the chorus. I want to keep it subtle. There's some nice presets in there. I'm trying different ones here. Not so subtle, a little bit more subtle with the mix knob dialed back, and that is my simple sound. Right, so I've generated a whole bunch of sounds and sequences. Now I'm going to do a live arrangement with my APC40 controller, basically recording in the whole track with all the automation and the clip starting and stopping and effects and everything. So let's go. Okay, so everything is in a nice arrangement. It's pretty simple, as you can see. Really only 8 tracks, although the kick and the sub bass are in a group channel. What you're seeing here is the track with the main synth, so a lot of the sounds I've resampled. This one I've kept it in the VCV Rack interface, which allows me to adjust some parameters. You can see at the bottom left all the parameters that are available to control, and I'm controlling them from the Akai APC40, basically controlling the filter, that's mostly it. So I've started the shaker and hi-hat sounds now, just fading in the shaker. And that's the stab sound. Again, playing with the character of the main synth, gradually building up the intensity. And here a little breakdown just by using the high pass filter on the kick and the sub. And starting the FM pad here, which adds some atmosphere and also some variation. It has this evolving character. This sound is also not resampled, but still in the VCV Rack interface. Of course, sometimes it's a good idea to resample things like a kick, for instance, so it sounds consistent. You just need the one sample, but for these longer evolving textures, it's really cool to just use the synthesizer. Further opening up the filter on the main synth here. So for this breakdown, I stopped the kick and the sub clip. The hi-hats are still going, everything else is still going. Now the hi-hat is stopped as well. I'm increasing the volume on the pad sound, opening up the filter on the main synth. That's the build-up. And there we have the drop. And now I'm adding in the cymbal sound, you're hearing that for the first time. So that's new, and basically everything is going now pretty much maximum intensity. I think this FM pad does give a lot of variation, and that's one of the harder things to do if you're not using samples or something like Paul X Stretch. I'm a pretty lazy producer, I don't like to create a million different synth parts, so having something that evolves and shifts over time is a great way to give it that variation, give it that sort of interest. Another breakdown again with the high pass filter on the kick and the sub. Just your typical DJ style high pass break. Again, intensity is going up in the main synth. Here I forgot basically to turn the filter down again. It's being automated by hand, so you get these mistakes, but that's fine, I can always change it later. Again with the cymbal sound coming in, and I think I've increased the volume on that a little bit. This is the final sprint of the track, this is the final part where it's full on, everything's happening, everything's going on. I keep playing with the filter on the main synth sound, and quickly that's going to be dialed back a little bit as things will start to wind down. Here I've stopped the cymbal again and also the hi-hat and the shaker. You can hear stuff is winding down with the filter on the main synth closing further, and I'm also decreasing the volume on the pad sounds. A final high pass break, that's the outro. And basically that's the track done here. Okay, so that's the complete track done. All the sounds generated with the Surge XT modules, as you have seen, and hopefully you like the result. If you do, or if you like the video, please give it a like on YouTube, that really helps, and consider subscribing to see more of this kind of stuff. In any case, thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.